we talked about the MRF and how the MRF sorts our items, right? So the MRF is designed to receive your items in the shape and design that they were sold to you in. So we don't want to crush things like gallons or even things like cans. We don't want to crush things like cans either, because that can change the way that the MRF interacts with that object. So like a crushed can, it might be more likely to be stuck under something, not able to make that jump on the eddy current, or a crushed water bottle might be trapped under or inside something else. And some recycling trucks will compact things, so you might be thinking, if it's getting compacted anyway, why can't I compact it myself? But Ramsey County is asking us to try to keep things in these traditional forms, especially as we move towards a more automated system with the MRF. It's going to be important for these items to stay in that shape. Does that make sense? Yeah. So boxes are the exception. I talked about how broken down boxes actually help the MRF function because they want that cardboard to be able to rise to the top and be separated early. So you always want to make sure that you're breaking down any cardboard boxes. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up again. Definitely important. All right, any more questions about that? Yeah. Yes, so cartons are a specific case. Here in Minnesota, there's something called the Carton Council, which is a group of producers that make cartons that came together to try to figure out how these could become recyclable. The main problem with these is that they have kind of a waxy interior, which is designed to protect the cardboard from the liquid that's inside of the carton. And by working together with the MRFs, the Carton Council was able to come up with a system that allows us to recycle cartons. So all cartons like this, soup cartons, milk cartons, that kind of thing, are all recyclable here in Minnesota. And you do want to make sure that you keep that path on these as well. But some other items that are similar to that, such as like a wax-lined cup, like a soft cup like or a cold cup like this, is going to have that same waxy interior, but is not going to be recyclable. And that's just because they don't get caught in that same, they don't get sorted into that same line that the cartons do. The system is just a little bit different. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yep, that's going to be included in the carton as well. So like any small juice box or anything like that. And that's a great thing that we have here in Minnesota. And that's also a good reminder that if you're traveling, recycling isn't the same throughout the country. So if you're ever somewhere else, it can help to, take a look at what the recycling education is in that area. And if you're ever not sure if something is recyclable, you can also search that item and then recycling and then the county that you're in. And you can usually find some good information on Google as well about whether or not that item is recyclable. But if you're ever in doubt and not sure if something is recyclable, we usually say when in doubt, throw it out. I like to say when in doubt, find out with Google. And then throw it out if you can't determine whether that item is recyclable or not. It's really important for us to keep that contamination out of our recycling, which is why we encourage you, if you're not sure, to place that item in the trash. Does that make sense? Rigidity. All right, rigidity is kind of what we were talking about with plastic bags. So plastic bags, can anyone think of the reason why a plastic bag is not sortable in that MRF environment we talked about? Yep. Yeah, that's the biggest reason is plastic bags get stuck in a lot of these moving parts that are all over the MRF. If you think about hair in a vacuum cleaner, it kind of turns into that situation. And when too much of it gets stuck in these machines, they have to shut everything down, and somebody has to go in by hand and cut all of this plastic film out of these machines, which is dangerous and is also not efficient because they have to stop the entire floor. Because these MRFs are designed that if one thing stops, everything stops. So they have to come to a complete halt of the entire process and remove these plastic bags. And they're doing this multiple times a day. So it's very important for us to try to keep these plastic bags out. And the easiest way to test for rigidity is just to try to tear that piece of plastic. And if you can easily tear a hole into that piece of plastic, it should not go into your recycling. So anything like like a grape bag, you know, you could probably pull that apart if you tried. That would not be recyclable. But if you had grapes that were in a more solid plastic container like this, and it had a 1, a 2, or a 5, you would be able to recycle that container. So that's going to be the difference there. We talked a little bit about color. Clear plastic is always going to be the best for recycling, just because it's the most usable in the future. And then black plastic is not recyclable here in Minnesota, as we've talked about. And then spoon clean. This is a common question I get. How rinsed out does my recycling need to be, or how empty do my containers need to be? And the MRFs are asking us to educate on spoon clean, which means basically as much as you could get out with a spoon. If you think of like a jar of peanut butter, kind of as much as you could scrape out of there. But you do not have to rinse out your recycling, and you do not have to put it through the dishwasher, as some people have told me that they do. So all you need to do is make sure that you spoon out any food items or any remaining items out of your containers before you recycle them. Yeah?
So it's not as common, but there are some things that are in colored plastic other than black.
Yeah.
So it's like a rule of thumb, just clear plastic, and then like I've seen kind of the rose-colored plastic or something like that.
Yeah. So plastics of other colors besides black are accepted by Ramsey and Washington County. But if you're thinking about like the recycling industry, like as a consumer, it's better to buy like items in clear plastic versus any sort of like colored plastic. It's just better for the industry as a whole. But black plastic is the only one that has those issues with the resin and being difficult to see on the black conveyor belt going by, which are the main reasons that it's not currently accepted. And all right, some more tips here. Recycling right, avoiding wish cycling. So wish cycling is when you really, really want something to be recyclable, so you place it into the recycling anyway. And like we've talked about, this doesn't make something recyclable, so you want to make sure that if an item is not recyclable, you're placing it into the trash. We talked about when in doubt, find out. When in doubt, throw it out. Right there it says, can I recycle aerosol cans, Ramsey County? You can if they're empty. If they are not empty, they need to go to the Hazardous Waste Center. There is a drop-off on Empire Drive here in St. Paul. Keeping plastic bags out. I didn't mention the drop-off yet, but a lot of grocery stores now are doing plastic film drop-offs. So you can keep all those plastic bags in a bag of their own, including any sort of like soft plastic wrap that comes on items. Especially important like with a lot of gift shopping, a lot of plastic wrap on gifts you might be buying. Make sure to keep that together. You can bring that to a lot of grocery stores. Drop it off there where it can be turned back into plastic film again. Keep everything in its original shape. We talked about that. Another exception to that would be aluminum foil. You can recycle clean aluminum foil, so anything that isn't too greasy. And you can ball that up and save it until it's like fairly large and then send that into the recycling. I like to see like how big I can get my tin foil ball before I send it on its way.
Send it piecemeal.
No. Yep, you want to try to get it like to have a little bit of bulk, a little bit of size on it before.
Some food.
Right.
Like
yep.
A lot of times you get it from the oven and it's burnt on whatever. It's pretty hard to get off.
Yep, if there's a little bit, it's okay, but if it's completely saturated, then that would be a trash item as well. Kind of like that same kind of spoon clean idea, where if it's reasonably clean, it can go, and if it is past that, it probably shouldn't. That it's kind of a gray area, but if that makes sense. And then we talked about our plastics, remembering that 1, 2, and 5 to figure out what is recyclable there. And then I just want to talk a little bit about things that you should be extra careful to make sure do not end up in your recycling stream. So batteries, especially lithium batteries, which are going to be like the little round ones, are very, very dangerous. If they get punctured, they can explode. And if you think about these MRFs, there's a lot of paper around, especially very fine paper. And these can result in huge, huge fires that can burn down entire MRFs. And they have crazy fire suppression technology. One of the MRFs I went to had the only remote firefighting job I've ever heard about, because it's like an automatic like fire suppression system, and then there's someone that is remote that is just watching all of these sensors and operating the system from afar if needed. But we want to make sure that we're keeping these batteries out. Some common things that these batteries are present in that are currently going to the recycler are vapes. Any sort of vape is going to have a battery in it, and those should always be going to that hazardous waste site, drop site that I talked about. Another common item, especially around this time, are holiday cards. Any sort of holiday card that lights up, plays a song, anything like that, is going to have a battery in it. So you want to make sure that those are not going into the recycling either. But just a normal card is going to be recyclable. So just a normal note card. Yeah? Yep. If you pull the battery out, then you can recycle the rest of the card. You just want to make sure that you dispose of that battery in a different way. Does that make sense? All right. We talked a little bit about hazardous material, but any hazardous material should never go into the recycling. Any sort of diapers or pet waste should not go into the recycling. That has to be pulled out in that line, that first line we talked about. And they've seen some crazy stuff in there. I talked to a person that had pulled an entire deer carcass off of the recycling line in a MRF. Yeah, so I don't know who threw that into their blue bin, but that is not going to be recyclable in your single sort. Things that harm the MRF, you know, we talked about that already a little bit. Those plastic bags, hoses, holiday lights, that's another kind of topical one right now. Those do that same thing of getting wrapped in that machinery and needing to be cut away. So we got to make sure to not put those in. And then not designed to be recycled. So that's going to be scrap metal. I've seen like a lot of cast iron pans at these MRFs. They are not designed to take that. So those cannot be recycled. Any sort of, they can be recycled at a scrap recycler, but they cannot be recycled through your single sort. So any sort of like bulk metal like that, you can take it to a metal recycler. They will take it from you. Sometimes they will pay you for it. But it cannot go into your single sort recycling. Another thing is any sort of kitchenware, like a glass or anything designed to hold hot food, is going to be a different kind of glass than the glass that is normally going to your single sort. So like if you have like a cup or like a Pyrex bakeware, that cannot go to the recycler because it melts at a different temperature. So when they're melting this glass down to reuse it, if there is any glass in the batch that melts at that higher temperature, it kind of leaves these big clumps inside of like the heated glass mixture. And that lowers the quality of that recycled product. So we want to make sure that we're only sending container glass, like this little soup jar. So mason jars would be in that category where they've been heat treated for canning. So mason jars are not going to be recyclable in your single sort because of that. But they definitely are reusable. Mason jars are a great item to keep and reuse. You know, continue filling. You can even, you know, drink out of them. They have plenty, or a lot of uses around the home as well. Yep.
On that, if a glass breaks before that's fine to recycle it, it's the right type of glass.
Yes. If the glass, but you want to make sure to protect people. If a glass is broken, you can put it inside a paper bag, which helps protect those glass shards from going anywhere or puncturing anyone. So that's going to be important as well. You never want to put broken glass into a plastic bag either, for like just to toss it into the trash, because it can come through that plastic bag and cut someone. So you always want to make sure that you're putting it into a paper bag. Styrofoam is not going to be recyclable here in Minnesota, so that's always going to go in the trash. And then food waste is not recyclable, but is compostable. So I'm going to talk super briefly about composting. We'll keep it quick. Does everybody here know what composting is? Familiar at all? Yep? A little bit? Okay. Awesome. So composting is just the idea of turning organic material into a rich kind of soil enhancer that we can add back into our soil to make sure that we're preserving those nutrients and not losing that. So the organics recycling process is picked up, taken out to the composting facility, laid into these big piles, and then they have to go in and move the piles around and aerate them. They have to keep track of the temperature to make sure that it's reaching a certain temperature so it can kill all of the bacteria that is in that material. And then by the time it's done, it kind of looks like this really rich, deep, dark soil. And most of our composting here in Minnesota is actually put into highway road or medians, and around any sort of highway or construction work to kind of help grow grass and landscaping back into those areas quicker. And we're trying to grow that industry and get that composting into more areas. So hopefully that will happen. If you have access to organics recycling, what can go in there? So all food scraps can go in. That includes any like meat or bones, eggshells, any sort of food scraps, cooking scraps, prepared food, all of that can go. And then compostable products are going to be the other big one. So with compostable products, you're going to look for a certification called BPI certification. This is going to be what it looks like right here. And if you see that symbol, you know that that product has been tested in a controlled environment to ensure that it actually breaks down during that composting process that we talked about. If it does not have that and it just says compostable or eco-friendly, that could be compostable but may not be. There's nothing to indicate that it underwent that testing. So you want to make sure that you're looking out for that BPI certification when you can, to determine if a product is compostable or not. And then some paper products are also compostable. So paper towels, napkins, pizza boxes, things like that are going to be compostable. And those are not going to be recyclable, mostly because the paper strands that make these items are so thin, they aren't able to hold together again to kind of reform into a paper product. So the end of life for those paper products ideally is to go to compost. And egg cartons are a great example of that. You know, they have kind of like that rougher texture to them. That just shows you that it has like that smaller strand length. So those are going to be compostable. And often egg cartons have already been recycled 3 to 4 times. Yeah?
So with paper products, like tissues, like that, that's compostable, but what if you use it like to make a box? Does that change? Are we enough to really compostable, like stuff like that?
You know, that's a good question. As far as I know, no. But I would say, like, if it's like a hazardous waste, I would probably dispose of that in the trash. But generally, like, if you're wiping up any food items, I think makeup would be all right as well. You should be all right. But if it's anything toxic or hazardous, I would place that into the trash. Any other questions about organics recycling? What? Cotton swabs? That would be no, that would be a trash. Yeah? Sure, so there's a number of different haulers. I actually don't know who is your hauler off the top of my head for Allen Waste. Yeah, so
The dumpster in the back actually does not belong to the building, it belongs to the private. So but we negotiated with them to keep it. And like we had also
yeah, so it's picked up by just regular commercial haulers who have a composting route. Not every single hauler does, but they pick it up and then they will bring it right to this facility. The facility is out in Shakopee. I've been there 2 different times. And then I believe there's another composting facility that's north of St. Paul. So it could be going to either of those. But that's where it's formed into those large piles. They rotate it, monitor it, and then it's sold to consumers like you and me, or to the state to do some of that road work and landscaping work that I talked about. Yeah?
Do you shroud the same trash?
Yeah, this is my recycling kit. So sometimes, like, if I find a fun piece of trash, I will add it to this. But I usually have the same items. But you can see some of these, like, my little Amazon thing here has been stress tested a time or 2. So this one might be ready for a replacement.
Mm-hmm. On the Amazon package, do you have to take the label off?
Yep, yeah, so this is a good question, and it's another one that's kind of a gray area. It's like tape is a really common question, tape on cardboard boxes. Because the system of recycling is designed to tolerate like a little bit of tape or a little bit of labels, but if it's, you know, I would say excessive, excessive tape, it would be, helpful to the system for you to pull some of that tape off or some of those labels off. But a lot of that is, some of that is designed into the system, if that makes sense. I know it's not like a perfect black or white answer, but unfortunately recycling there isn't always one of those. Yeah?
Steel tape, like all that masking tape,
Mm-hmm.
that type of
That would not be recyclable, yeah. So any tape is going to be going into that true trash stream. Any other questions right now? We'll have a little more time for questions at the end if you guys think of anything, but I just have a really quick little recycling questionnaire here. Do you guys want to give me a thumbs up if you think something is recyclable, and a thumbs down if you think it's a true trash item? And if it's organics, just shout out organics, okay? And I'll hold up if I have them. So we got plastic bottle. All right. Do you guys know? So I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. That's great. How would you guys check if you weren't sure? Yep, 125. Yep. Yeah. So you would check that resin code, but we'll say that there's a 1 on here. So you guys are correct. That's going to be recyclable. Fantastic. Then we got aluminum can. Awesome. Yep. Aluminum cans are definitely recyclable, infinitely recyclable like we talked about. And it saves a lot of energy every time you recycle an aluminum can. It takes the same amount of energy to power your TV for an hour that you save from recycling just 1 can. So if you recycle 1 can, then you get to watch an hour of Netflix guilt-free. All right, we got food scraps. Yeah, organics. Wonderful, yes. All food scraps are going to go right into that organic bin. Glass bottle. Perfect. Do we keep the lid on?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Paper cups. Ooh, yep. Yeah, okay. So paper cups are not going to be recyclable. And these are important with organics too, because this is the #1 biggest contaminant in organics, is a non-compostable paper cup. When these break down in the organic stream, the paper on the outside of them does break down, and it leaves just this kind of like inner plastic film that's left over from that biodegradation process. So, and then they have to pull that out of the compost. So you want to make sure any paper cup you're putting into the organics is actually going to be compostable. But those are going to go into true trash, just like you guys said. We've got some BPI certified products. Organics, yes. Yep, and you want to make sure to look out for that BPI certification down there in the corner. Paper and cardboard. Wonderful. All right, and what do you do with those cardboard boxes? Break them down. You guys are experts. All right, plastic utensils. All right, and there's 2 reasons these aren't recyclable. What are they?
Glass is hard to see.
I think I saw it. It's too small. Yep, size. All right. Yep, color and size are going to be our issues there, and they're going to go into the true trash. All right, Post-it notes. Recycle or trash.
Can you take those little?
This one can be a little tricky. This one is actually recyclable, but you don't want to put those Post-it notes into the recycling themselves. But if you stick them onto a larger sheet of paper, they can ride along with that sheet of paper, kind of similar to how our caps ride along with our plastic bottle. So you can just stick a Post-it note on anything else going in the recycling and send it on its way. Styrofoam. Yep, that's going to be our true trash stream right there. That's great. Cartons. We talked about the Carton Council. Awesome. Yep, those are going to be recyclable. Yes. I think it was just a really clever Carton employee. I'm not totally sure how they came up with the name. But fast food wrappers. Yep, yeah, so these are going to be trash. Although you do want to take a look at these because due to some of the ordinances that are going into effect in Minneapolis and St. Paul, some of these fast food wrappers are now coming out with compostable versions. So if it says it's compostable, it has that BPI certification, you can place that into the compost.
Is that the same for, like wax paper that you use for baking and like, it's partially paper, yeah?
Yep, so wax paper is going to be not recyclable, generally, and then there are compostable versions of it, but
Okay, so that's the key.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, like,
Yeah.
it feels like it has to have that.
it's going to have that certification. And the thing with wax paper that can make it really hard is that certification is usually only on the package that it comes in. Like every single paper is not necessarily going to be stamped with that. So that makes it really hard for people like us to sort that. So hopefully.
So you're saying the carton's compostable, not the parchment paper?
No, so like if it is like compostable wax paper, it'll have the BPI certification might be on the box that the wax paper came in, saying like that this wax paper is compostable, but that doesn't help, us when we're looking at the paper in our container to sort it. Does that make sense? So a lot of these things, especially labeling, it's going to take a while for us to, try to work some of these kinks out. But generally, if everything else coming out of a place is compostable, I would place that into the compost as well. But that ordinance is something to be aware of in both Minneapolis and St. Paul now. Everything you get from a restaurant to go should be either compostable or recyclable. Ideally. So paper towels and napkins. Okay, so this says trash, but that's wrong. It's organics. It's organics. You guys are right. Don't let me make you nervous. All right, berry clamshell. It's kind of hard to see up there. Yep, 1, 2, and 5. Little shape right here. So you would want to check that, but say if this was a 5, it looks like a 5, that would, actually it's a 1. Little code right here. Go right into the recycling. So that is going to be recyclable. Black plastic. Hey, boo. Yep, awesome.
But the clear lid should be...
Yep, the clear lid would be able to go. Here, depending on that resin code, I can't quite see what it says. So you would be able to separate that and send the lid along. Yogurt containers. So these are 2 different yogurt containers. I like to include this just as kind of a way that you as a consumer might be able to make a little bit of a difference just day to day. So one of these containers here is recyclable and one is not. Do we know which one is which? Yep. Okay. Yeah. So this one, our Oikos, is that how you say it? Over here is going to be a 6, and then it's also black plastic, as we've talked about. So that's not going to be recyclable, while the Chobani over here is in white plastic and then has a 5 as well. So that's going to be recyclable. So that's a little decision that you could make as a consumer. Look for things that are packaged in recyclable containers versus things that you would have to place in the trash. That one would go in the trash, and that one would go in the recycling. And we have plastic bags and film. Yeah, that's our biggest contaminant. We want to make sure that we're either putting that in the trash or taking it to the drop-off. Yeah.
On that, just so, we do have a container for plastic wrap.
Plastic foam?
Yeah. It'll be white, we only have one, and it'll be in the kitchen, along with the other recycling. I didn't quite figure out who's going to be hauling that where, but it will be.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So you guys will have access to that right here every day, which is great to hear. I know. So I've got some key takeaways here. We talked about keeping those batteries out, keeping people safe, stopping those fires, those tanglers, and keeping our infrastructure safe by not recycling things that are going to get all wrapped up in there like our plastic bags. We talked about 1, 2, and 5. When in doubt, find out, or when in doubt, throw it out. Just know that by recycling, you're helping make the world a better place, doing your part to preserve things here in Minnesota. There's been a lot of talk about plastics recycling, whether it's real recently. Here in Minnesota, we have a really robust recycling industry. That isn't the case everywhere. And we also have regulations that if you place recyclables in your bin, it is a federal or is a state crime for those to not end up at the MRF and be sorted as recycling. So your hauler cannot take things that are meant to be recycled to the landfill or to the incinerator without express permission from the county commissioner. And once these items arrive at that MRF, the MRF can only throw away 8 to 10% of what arrives as contamination. So when you place things into your recycling, you can rest assured that at least 90% of what you're placing in there will be sorted as recycling and will make it to an end market. So.
Is there ever any secondary recycling, like say someone who does put their things that are recyclable in a bag, even though they're not supposed to, and that immediately goes to the trash, or?
Yes. So unfortunately right now, the level of sorting that they're doing at MRFs is the most sorting that can happen with the volume of recycling they're processing, the amount of MRFs that we have, which is why it's important for us to try to sort as correctly as we can to make sure that we are making that as easy as possible for them. Because if you place something into the recycling stream in that plastic bag, it will just get pulled off and it will just be part of that 8 to 10%, no matter what is inside. And that's a health issue too, that they can't open some sealed bags. Yeah?
So, what if we put our recycling in paper bags? Should we like pour it out to the bin before we like? Oh.
Yep, that's the best way to do it. I do that too, like I hold it in a paper bag, keep my container a little cleaner, you know? And then when I take it out to the recycling, I just shake that bag out so it's nice and loose inside the big blue bin out there. And then you can just place that paper bag inside.
I just put a paper bag in.
The paper bag is not as bad as the plastic bag, but it's best to have your recyclables loose in there if possible. Yeah?
I saw that shredded paper for recycling, but a lot of people probably tear their bills or something. Like, what is the minimum size for paper? I mean, if you have a paper envelope with a plastic film, you just tear out that film if you want to recycle it?
Are you talking about like the little
triangle?
Yeah, like triangle thing. So the recycling system has adapted to those because they're so common. So you don't have to pull those out. They have a system within the plastic recycling that will remove those from the stream. With the shredded paper, there's a lot of municipalities that do collect shredded paper. I went and visited San Francisco, and they collect shredded paper. But unfortunately, it's not something we're able to do right now. So any shredded paper should be sealed inside something and then placed into the trash. Is the answer right now. So it's another kind of like gray area type situation, I would say, and because it doesn't have any sort of like adhesive, like when we talked about the Post-it note, I would say if you tear a piece of paper probably more than 3 times, I would probably no longer place that in the recycling. I would probably refer back to like the size of your fist argument with that. But yeah, shredded paper, the main reason that they don't want it is because it can end up going into like the joints and parts of like the machinery that are moving, and then as they move, it turns into almost like this mushy gunk in there, and then it's very hard to remove and disrupts the MRF. So that's why we can't accept it right now, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to seal it somehow and separate it and recycle it.
So we were, our proposal person was Gabby in the hall.
Yep.
And she said that the paper company here across.
Yep, Westrock. Yep.
Yes, yeah. Apparently they could accept.
If you bring it straight to them?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that. That's great to hear.
I
Yeah.
haven't found a door that like.
Yeah. The public drop off.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, so she says she went.
Sure.
I haven't had time to do it yet, but
Yeah.
If that works, our plan is to do that here with our recycling. We do
Okay.
have a shredder.
Mhm.
We've been using those paper lawn bags, G and Menards or whatever, those big small things. Fill that up, seal it, and then bring it over to Westrock.
Well, that is great. Well, you learn something new every day. I will chat with my coworkers a little bit, see if I can get you a little more information.
That would be great.
Yeah, about that shredded paper recycling over at Westrock. Because yeah, you guys are right in the backyard of our where the paper goes to be recycled and turned back into paper and cardboard. So also would be great to take advantage of that as well. All right. Yeah. Sure.
Sorry. One is when capabilities change, like 3, 4, 6, black
Mhm.
plastic, shred paper, whatever.
Yep.
How do we find that out?
Yeah, so if you have any questions about recycling, the best thing to do is just to search recycling and then the county that you live in or the county that you work in. Both Ramsey and Washington counties have great information on their website that they try to update at least once a year. Ideally, if you live in Ramsey or Washington County, you should also receive a guide in the mail called your recycling guide. It just says like Ramsey County or Washington County Recycling Guide on it, and it has all the updates to the recycling industry from that year. So like a change from last year was that they just started accepting pizza boxes at the recycler, as long as they aren't extremely food soiled. So that was an update that used to be an absolute no-go item, and then that was reflected in the recycling guide. So I would check online or refer to that guide.
It also does updates on like seasonal, like with Christmas lights, Ramsey County recycles Christmas lights, those are damaged or
Yep.
whatever.
They do drop off at the library, right?
Yes, that's
Yep.
where it is,
Yeah. So
yeah.
you can just. That's great to talk about now, like with the holiday season ending soonish.
So wrapping, like gift wrap, the same, gift bags, all the same category.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I actually did want to bring this up towards the end. If you guys still have to wrap your presents, you could make the decision to wrap your presents either in brown cardboard paper, or just kind of brown paper, or in newspaper, and then those would be recyclable items. With newspaper, it could even be a reusable item, or you are reusing that item, versus wrapping paper, which is not recyclable. So any wrapping paper should go right into that true trash stream, but there are alternatives. And paper bags would be recyclable.
And raspberry.
Draw on it.
Okay,
Second question.
Do you know if most of your presentation is also relevant for those who live in Hennepin County?
In Hennepin County. A lot of it is the same. I would just do that little Google with Hennepin County and see if anything is different. I live in Hennepin County and I follow these same rules as well.
And then bubble tea, film on top.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know about those specifically.
That whole thing is going to be true trash for
Yeah,
boba
awesome.
tea, with the straw, the film, and then the cup as well. And that's something that we've like. That's interesting because there's no real compostable alternative for that can stand up to like the amount of heat that they have to be able to endure while still being like puncturable. You know, and like that classic like boba. You know, you want that feeling of stabbing it. So they can't replicate that with a compostable product yet, but hopefully that will change. Okay, third question? Or was that all three? Okay, one more back here.
I'm hearing some news about some fungus that can eat plastic things. How far off do you think that technology is being integrated in
I think I'll leave that to the scientists that are working on that. It would be great to see something like that, be implementable on a large scale, and would definitely be helpful for like a lot of the plastic waste we have that can't be recycled. So, hopefully in the future, there's a lot of new things happening all the time in the waste industry. It impacts all of our daily lives so much. So hopefully in the future, but I don't have any insider information on any plastic fungus yet.
Have you heard of TerraCycle?
Yep, yeah.
So I don't know if the people are really serious, but if you want to, you can ship some of your hard recycle or no recycle products to TerraCycle, and they will turn it into other things. So like makeup, beauty products, the containers they come in, it's probably recyclable, but sometimes it's the thickness of it or whatever. Toothpaste, TerraCycle has a program with Colgate to take toothbrushes, actual toothpaste tubes, the dental floss things. So their programs come and go. For a while they were doing big lighters, which is like the bane of my existence. Like, I hate those, but I won't throw them away. I know I'm supposed to, but they include their else, including pens. So it's a great program to sign up for. It's free. You can they do, of course, want those products in bulk. So I have a little box in my house, stuff to keep putting in there. And then we ship it to them, I ship it for free, and then get full credits for. And they also have boxes that we could get here if we wanted to at the time, and that they are TerraCycle zero waste boxes that you put stuff in, close it up, and ship it to them. And then, so it's a great company.
Yep. And that also just goes back to that idea of, the things that we put in our single sort and are able to recycle in this way aren't necessarily because everything else is not recyclable at all. It's just because it either doesn't fit in the recycling system that we have right now, or we don't have an end market in Minnesota for that item after it's recycled into that base material. So TerraCycle, and other specialty recyclers are great ways to deal with those items that we can't recycle in our single sort. So thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions about recycling or games? Yeah?
Who's on the council?
What, the Carton Council?
It's like individuals are making decisions?
It's like representatives from different carton manufacturers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might have said this already, but like the white plastic spoons, that is in that same category of
Yep.
recyclable.
Yeah.
Like that, not the
Any
compostable ones.
Yep. Any utensil is going to be too small
Oh, that size.
for general recycling. So regardless of color, is going to go into the trash stream. But compostable cutlery is becoming a lot more common. So you want to make sure you're checking for that and looking for that BPI certification.
Yeah, thank you. I
All
feel
right.
like I learned a lot.
Awesome. Thank you guys. All right. And if any of you guys have any other questions, feel free to come up here. I have some reusable straws here if anybody would like one of these. I have a little card and lots of other information if anyone has any other questions. Thank you. Yeah.
Are we in doubt?
Yeah, I have not seen one, but the nice thing with
Another bottle?
yep. Or we can let's see if there's one on this bottle. I actually have not seen it on this bottle here, which is funny, but you can see what it would look like. There is one right here.
Yeah.